came into my life at a time where I couldn't even possibly imagine my worth. I thank you now because you helped me grow. And although I never forget where I came from, I always remember where I'm going. And that's with you by my side.
Just weeks after what she called her dream wedding, 35-year-old Luvinia Gardner was running naked through the streets of Chicago, her body engulfed in flames. The man who had vowed to love and protect her had just doused her in lighter fluid and set her on fire. This isn't just another domestic violence case. This is the horrifying story of how a fairy tale romance became a deadly trap, and how warning signs that were broadcast live on social media went tragically unheeded. If you're new here, welcome to True Crime Tales HQ. We dive deep into cases that matter, examining not just what happened, but why it happened and how we can prevent it from happening again. Before we continue, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest investigations. Most importantly, share this video. These stories save lives when the right person sees them at the right time. Today's case will leave you questioning how well we really know the people closest to us. This story takes us to Chicago, Illinois, a city known for its towering skylines and vibrant culture, but also a place where behind the bustling streets and glittering lights, darkness can lurk in the most unexpected places. It was in the South Deering neighborhood where Luvinia Gardner, affectionately known as VEV to her friends, had built what seemed like a stable, happy life. At 35, Luvinia was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. Her friends described her as having a heart of gold, someone with an infectious smile and a positive attitude that could lift anyone's spirits, even during their darkest moments. She worked as a customer service representative, helping clients navigate financial challenges with the same grace and warmth she brought to every aspect of her life. Luvinia's social media painted the picture of a woman who truly embraced life. Her Facebook was filled with playful photos, happy moments with friends, and an energy that radiated pure joy. She was someone who gave freely of herself, always there when others needed support, always spreading positivity wherever she went. But despite having a career, close friendships, and a life filled with laughter, there was still something missing. That one person who could match her generous heart. Someone who would love her as deeply as she was capable of loving others. Luvinia yearned for a romantic connection that would complete the beautiful life she had worked so hard to build. And in the spring of 2020, she thought she had found exactly that. But what began as a promise of forever love would ultimately become a nightmare that no one could have imagined. A story that would shock her community and serve as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest danger comes from those we trust the most. The man who would change Luvinia's life forever was 31-year-old Henry Taylor. Their first meeting wasn't the stuff of romantic comedies. There were no sparks flying across a crowded room or chance encounters that felt like destiny. Instead, their connection began in the most basic way possible. Pure physical attraction. Living close to each other in the same neighborhood, Henry and Luvinia would meet up on the same street, initially just for sex. It was casual, uncomplicated, and seemingly harmless. But as the weeks turned into months, something unexpected began to happen. What had started as nothing more than physical encounters slowly evolved into something that felt deeper, more meaningful. Henry had a magnetic personality that drew Luvinia in.
Help me trim the tree. I wanna wrap you up, baby, then you'll see you're the only friend that I need. There's so much more waiting for you. It's more.
He was confident, charismatic, and had a goofy, silly side that made her laugh. There was something about his boldness and unfiltered way of speaking that she found incredibly attractive. He wasn't like other men she had dated. He was unapologetically himself, and that authenticity seemed refreshing. But Henry Taylor was not the man he appeared to be on the surface. Beneath that charming exterior was a troubled past that should have sent any reasonable person running in the opposite direction. Henry had already served time in prison, convicted of theft and possession of a stolen motor vehicle. His criminal record was just the tip of the iceberg. More concerning than his legal troubles were Henry's serious anger management issues. This wasn't something he tried to hide or downplay. By his own admission, he was a self-described hothead who wasn't afraid to lash out when provoked. He was a man who often acted impulsively to satisfy his rage, regardless of the consequences that might follow. For most people, learning about a potential partner's criminal history and volatile temperament would be an immediate deal breaker. But Lavinia was different. Even after discovering these red flags, she chose to stay. She believed in the power of love, in second chances, and in redemption. Perhaps she thought she could help him change, or maybe she genuinely believed that the sweet, goofy side of Henry was his true self. To anyone scrolling through their social media profiles, Henry and Lavinia's relationship looked like a modern-day love story. Their Facebook pages were filled with smiling selfies, romantic weekend getaways, and sweet captions declaring their eternal love and devotion. They looked happy, in love, and completely devoted to each other. But behind those carefully curated posts was a much more complicated reality. Their relationship was a roller coaster of extreme highs and devastating lows, marked by frequent breakups, followed by emotional reconciliations. These weren't typical relationship disagreements about money or future plans. These separations stemmed from constant, explosive arguments fueled by Henry's unchecked anger. His temper had a way of turning even the smallest disagreements into full-blown conflicts that left emotional scars. The volatility created an atmosphere of tension that never fully resolved, leaving their relationship in a perpetual state of instability. Yet despite the chaos, there were moments when Henry could be incredibly sweet and romantic. He would surprise Lavinia with flowers, cook her favorite meals, or leave handwritten love notes that seemed to come from a completely different person than the one who had been screaming at her just hours before. These gestures of affection were what kept pulling her back, convincing her that their love was worth fighting for. On March 16, 2021, Lavinia and Henry took the ultimate leap of faith. They decided to get married in what Lavinia proudly described as their dream wedding. The couple chose Las Vegas as their destination, a city known for spontaneous decisions and new beginnings, where the dazzling lights and electric atmosphere seemed like the perfect backdrop for their love story. Surrounded by a small circle of close family members, Lavinia and Henry exchanged vows in an intimate ceremony filled with laughter, joy, and genuine happiness.
Walk down the path of life on days that seem dark or light. May you always turn to each other in times of sorrow or joy. Lean on each other as you enter new beginnings and continue to share all of God's promises with each other. It is truly now my great honor to pronounce you as husband and wife. You may seal your promises with a kiss.
In that moment, standing together in Vegas, they both truly believed they were starting fresh, leaving behind all their past struggles and embarking on a new chapter as husband and wife. Their wedding video captured nothing but pure bliss. The footage shows two people who appeared completely in love, sharing genuine smiles and tender moments that made everyone watching believe they were witnessing something beautiful and lasting. Lavinia's happiness was radiant. She had finally found her person, the man she would spend the rest of her life with. After returning from their Vegas adventure, the newlyweds settled into married life with enthusiasm and hope. Lavinia's Facebook post during this period painted the picture of a woman living her best life. She shared playful videos with Henry, posted photos of romantic dinners, and captured quiet, affectionate moments that showed a couple walking hand in hand through life. To everyone on the outside looking in, it appeared that Lavinia had gotten her fairy tale ending. Her social media was filled with celebration, light, and joy, the posts of someone who believed that life was finally going exactly as planned. But beneath the surface of these happy posts and cheerful updates, the same toxic patterns that had plagued their relationship before marriage were still very much present. The anger, the volatility, the cycle of conflict and reconciliation. Marriage hadn't magically erased these issues. If anything, the legal commitment may have given Henry a false sense of ownership over his wife. Just days before tragedy would strike, Luvinia went live on Facebook, offering her followers what seemed like a glimpse into a normal, happy marriage. In the video, she and Henry sat together sharing a seafood boil, casually chatting and laughing like any other couple enjoying a meal together. On the surface, it looked wholesome and genuine. But during that seemingly innocent live stream, Henry said something that should have terrified anyone listening. Words that, in hindsight, served as a chilling preview of the horror that was about to unfold. What Henry Taylor said during that Facebook live stream wasn't just concerning. It was a roadmap to murder, broadcast for anyone who cared to listen. With Luvinia sitting right beside him, Henry began revealing the dark thoughts festering in his mind. He casually acknowledged his anger problems, joking about having short man syndrome, as if his explosive temper was merely a personality quirk. There was no shame, no recognition that his behavior was dangerous, just disturbing indifference. But what came next was far worse. With chilling calmness, Henry openly admitted he wasn't afraid of going back to prison. He spoke about incarceration like a minor inconvenience he could easily face again. Prison wasn't a deterrent. It was just another place he could exist if necessary. Then came the most bone-chilling moment. Looking directly into the camera with Luvinia inches away, Henry declared he had nothing to live for. In the same matter-of-fact tone someone might use to discuss the weather, he explained that if anyone crossed him, he wouldn't hesitate to take their life. The specific threat was particularly disturbing given what would happen days later. Henry talked about being ready to open up someone's head and set them on fire. The casual way he described this exact method of violence should have sent every alarm bell ringing. This wasn't hypothetical anger. This was a man verbally rehearsing murder. His jealousy was triggered by something as innocent as Luvinia's friends pursuing college education. Instead of feeling proud, Henry fantasized about brutal violence, revealing a man whose ego was threatened by other success. Throughout this disturbing monologue, Luvinia treated it as just another rant. She had become so desensitized to his explosive personality that these red flags felt normal. This is the tragic reality of abusive relationships. Victims often normalize increasingly dangerous behavior. For anyone watching, Henry's words should have been recognized as direct threats. The combination of his criminal history, anger problems, disregard for consequences, and detailed violent fantasies created a perfect storm of danger. But perhaps most chilling wasn't just what Henry said, it was how he said it. The coldness suggested these weren't heat-of-the-moment threats. These were the calculated words of someone who had already decided that human life was expendable when it threatened his ego. On April 16, 2021, all of Henry's threats and violent fantasies would converge into one horrific act that would change everything forever. April 16, 2021 began like any other morning, but it would end with unimaginable horror. As tensions escalated between the newlyweds, Henry and Luvinia found themselves in another heated argument. Whatever triggered this fight pushed Henry past his breaking point, and the violent fantasies he had broadcast on Facebook Live were about to become deadly reality. What happened next was pure evil. Henry grabbed a container of lighter fluid, the same method of violence he had specifically described just days earlier. This wasn't spontaneous rage. This was calculated brutality. Without warning, Henry began dousing Luvinia with a flammable liquid. The terror in her eyes must have been overwhelming as she realized her husband was preparing to set her on fire. But Henry wasn't finished with his psychological torture. He pulled out a lighter and began flicking it repeatedly, taunting her, savoring her fear before delivering the final blow. Lavinia begged for her life, pleading with the man who had vowed to protect her. Her desperate words fell on deaf ears. Henry struck the lighter, and in an instant, Lavinia's world exploded into flames. The lighter fluid ignited immediately, turning her body into a human torch. Despite being engulfed in fire, Lavinia's survival instincts kicked in. She frantically tore off her burning clothes and stumbled to the bathroom, throwing herself into the shower to extinguish the flames that were melting her skin. The plastic from her hair extensions fused with her flesh as she fought desperately to save herself. Once the fire was out, Lavinia faced another terrifying reality. She was alone with her attacker, naked and burned over 70% of her body. Instead of waiting to see what Henry might do next, she made a decision that would give her the only chance at survival. Despite her devastating injuries, despite being completely naked, despite excruciating pain with every step, she ran. She burst from that house into the streets of Chicago, running for her life in the most literal sense possible. For 2 full blocks, Lavinia ran through unimaginable pain, her burned body a testament to her incredible will to survive. Her destination was Engine 81, a Chicago Fire Department station that represented her only hope. With every agonizing step, she was running from the man who tried to murder her and toward the people who might save her life. When Lavinia reached Engine 81 at 10458 South Hoxie Avenue, she pounded desperately on the firehouse door, her naked body a horrific testament to her husband's brutality. The firefighter who answered was met with a sight that would haunt him forever. A woman whose skin had melted over her fingernails, whose hair extensions had fused with her burned flesh. Despite her devastating condition, Lavinia was still conscious, still fighting. Through her agony, she managed to tell the firefighters exactly what had happened. Her own husband had poured gasoline on her and set her on fire. But perhaps most heartbreaking were her next words. She said she had always known Henry was going to kill her, and that she should have left him long ago. Then came the question that broke everyone's heart. Am I going to die? The firefighters immediately began administering aid while calling for paramedics. Over 70% of Lavinia's body had suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns. When emergency responders arrived, they initially transported her to Trinity Hospital, but her injuries were so severe that she needed specialized care at the University of Chicago Medical Center. There, medical teams fought desperately to save her life. She underwent multiple surgeries and skin graft procedures as doctors worked around the clock. For over a month, Lavinia clung to life with the same determination that had gotten her to that firehouse door. But the damage Henry had inflicted was simply too extensive. Despite the heroic efforts of medical professionals and her own incredible will to survive, Lavinia's body finally succumbed to her injuries. On May 21st, 2021, 35 days after the attack, Lavinia Gardner passed away at the University of Chicago Medical Center. She died surrounded by the love of family and friends who had prayed desperately for her recovery. But her fight was finally over. While Lavinia fought for her life in the hospital, Henry Taylor's actions after the attack revealed the depth of his callousness. Instead of calling for help or showing any remorse, he picked up the phone and called Lavinia's family to tell them what he had done. The casual way he delivered this devastating news showed a complete lack of empathy or understanding of the horror he had unleashed. For 5 days after Lavinia's death, Henry remained free while police issued an arrest warrant. But on May 26, 2021, he made a decision that would seal his fate. He turned himself in at the Rogers Park District Station. What happened next was perhaps even more chilling than the crime itself. Henry waived his right to remain silent and gave a videotaped confession that sent shockwaves through everyone who heard it. Not only did he admit to setting his wife on fire, but he offered his own twisted version of events that showed zero remorse for his actions. In that recorded statement, Henry claimed he wasn't even that close to her, when he flicked the lighter, but somehow she went up in flames anyway. This pathetic attempt to downplay his role in Louvenia's murder only highlighted his complete inability to take responsibility for the calculated brutality he had committed. 2 days later, on May 28, 2021, Henry Taylor stood before a Cook County judge and was officially charged with first-degree murder. Judge Susana Ortiz called his actions brutal and heinous, words that barely captured the true horror of what he had done to his wife. Because of the severity and premeditated nature of the crime, the judge denied Henry bond, meaning he would remain behind bars while awaiting trial. There he sits today, finally facing the consequences of transforming his violent fantasies into deadly reality. The news of Louvenia's death sent shockwaves through her community and beyond. This wasn't just another headline. This was a beloved daughter, friend, and woman whose light had been brutally extinguished by the person who was supposed to protect her most. Her family and friends refused to let her be remembered only for how she died. They launched a GoFundMe campaign to help cover funeral expenses, and the response was overwhelming. The fundraiser quickly exceeded $6,000, showing just how many lives Louvenia had touched, including complete strangers who were moved by her story. At her funeral, hundreds gathered to celebrate the woman she was, not just the victim she became. Friends shared memories of her infectious laughter, her generous heart, and her unwavering positivity. The service culminated in a beautiful tribute as mourners released purple balloons into the Chicago sky, a symbol of letting Louvenia's spirit soar free from the pain she had endured. But Louvenia's death accomplished something beyond grief. It opened eyes and started conversations. Her story became a powerful reminder that domestic violence often hides behind social media smiles and public displays of happiness. It showed how warning signs can be broadcast in plain sight, yet still go unheeded. Most importantly, Louvenia's story became a voice for countless others suffering in silence, trapped in relationships where love has been weaponized and promises of protection have become threats of destruction. Louvenia Gardner's murder represents one of the most extreme forms of intimate partner violence, but the warning signs were tragically clear. Domestic violence affects 1 in 4 women during their lifetime, and like Louvenia, many victims stay because they believe love can conquer all. The red flags in this case were impossible to miss. Henry's criminal history admitted anger issues, threats of violence broadcast live on social media, and his complete disregard for consequences. Yet these warnings were either ignored or normalized until it was too late. This case teaches us that abusers often escalate gradually, desensitizing their victims to increasingly dangerous behavior. When someone tells you who they are, especially when they threaten violence, believe them the first time. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, help is available. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Remember, leaving an abusive relationship is often the most dangerous time, but with proper support and safety planning, escape is possible.